right. So what is chiropractic? Chiropractic it's really about what's inside here, right? It's about the nervous system. So this is obviously spine, this is the skull, right? What's inside the skull is the brain, what's inside the spine is the spinal cord. So the brain and the spinal cord equals your central nervous system, right? Your master system that controls everything, every organ, muscle, cell, tissue, every action, every reaction. The nervous system does it. So your spine is almost like your suit of armor. So if you have a weakness or a chink in that armor, right, we're going to have some sort of influence on the nervous system. So these chinks or these weaknesses we'll call subluxation. Now, subluxation is sort of like an older chiropractic term. We still use it today. It's not a medical subluxation. It's essentially a movement of a joint away from normal healthy, right? So that movement creates an impingement or an interference into the nervous system. So the communication between the brain and the body, or the body and the brain, it's being interfered with. So at some stage, there's going to be some level of dysfunction. Okay, so think about this here, because I'll show you up here because it's a bit easier to access these nerves. Those yellow things are all nerves, spinal nerves, which attach to the spinal cord, which attaches to the brain, right? So when you have a subluxation, a movement of a joint away from normally healthy, they can rotate, they can go sideways, they can go forward and back. Can you see how that kind of pinches that nerve and it interferes with that nerve there? So believe it or not, that's not going to be painful straight away. It looks painful, but because the body is literally the best compensator in the planet, what you're going to do, and I told you before, the body winds and twists to compensate. So what it's going to do, it's going to get out of pain here. So you're going to maybe drop your left shoulder by twisting that around there, all right? Can you see how that nerve's the pressure's changing around there? Then what's going to happen, you're going to twist through your mid-back, okay, to try and stabilize for what happened over here. Then, because of that twist, we might have to hike a hip, right? So that leg will shorten, right? Also, we can take the pressure off there. But what happens eventually is, mate, that wears out. You'll get cooked in here. You'll start feeling all back. Like the whole body starts to get sore, and like you tweaked your L5. Mate, this might have been going on for a long time. So your body's probably been twisting and compensating for quite some time for potentially a subluxation or some sort of instability or weakness happening down there. And generally, pain is just a message from your body to your brain to go, stop, right, that's it, right, we need to do something now, otherwise this is going to be something even major. So that's kind of what the body does. That's what subluxation does. So a movement away from normal healthy, which the body can't auto-correct, by the way, because the ones that go forward, they're the ones that will look on your x-ray. They're the big ones, because the body can't actually auto-correct an anterior or forward subluxation, because there's muscles here on either side of the spine, but nothing here on the spinous process that pulls that back. So that twisting becomes even more apparent. That winding compensation becomes even more hectic. So if you've got, I guarantee, I'll put my bloody house on it, that you have an anterior subluxation at L5. I'm just going to call it now, okay? And you've had massive compensations, and that's why every time you go and try and load it again, your body's like, nah, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready until you fix me down here. You know what I mean? So subluxation, it seems like, oh, it's everything, but it's actually not. Remember how we said that there's a bigger picture going on here? So what causes subluxation is the biggest. That's the money shot. That's what we need to look at. So on the wall there's 3 T's of subluxation. And at the top, there's thoughts, and there's traumas, and there's toxins. Now, they're all stresses, right? So the thoughts or the emotional stresses are the biggest one. Because we're just dealing with it every single day. You know, emotional stress is sometimes good because it helps us get shit done, right? But overloading the system and too much or bad amounts of stress, too much stress, not good, okay? And we get into our mind, if we're thinking in the future, you know, we get anxious. If we're thinking in the past, we get depressed. So we need to understand, we almost need to be an observer of our emotional mind. So when you go into, if there's things that happen constantly, like in terms of situations that repeat themselves, if you act in a certain way behaviorally when you get triggered, you know, you become more a reactor rather than being proactive. So you're reacting over being proactive. So we need to pull back and be more observant of our reflexive behavioral action. So that's a lot about the emotional thoughts and having things to be the observer. So like we talked about with meditation, with breath work, you know, simple exercising, playing music, doing art, things that take you out of that, and also having practices where you can actually identify where your triggers are and how you behave, right? And because we all know that we don't like behaving in a certain way, so being the observer is so much more powerful than just kind of letting things happen. All right, and that's and I'll tell you why this is important. Now the next T is the trauma, what you've been through. So let's call yours macro trauma, because it's a big injury. Like that would be injuries, surgeries, accidents, that sort of stuff. So you've herniated a disc through a trauma, so that's another stress into the nervous system. The other ones are your micro traumas, which you've been working on at the moment. So postures in sitting, sleeping, standing. Obviously, you know, like I see a lot of work or office workers who are sitting for 8 to 12 hours a day, then they'll, you know, drive home, you know, for another hour, then they'll sit on the couch for another. So that's a big build up every day. Like sitting's the new smoking. It's just, we're not designed to do it. So if we do, we need to do it correctly. So, you know, I've given you a link to that workshop that I run. So yeah, that's super important to change those bad habits, sitting, sleeping and standing. Now the next T is the toxins. So they're more the sort of chemical stresses that come into the body through the drink we drink, the food we eat, or the drugs we potentially take. So there is a big biochemical stress that can happen as well, and that can happen hormonally, you know, due to either pathologies or, as I said, the lifestyle factors through the stuff we ingest. So all of these three T's create another T called tone, right? So tone is like hypertone is when you flex a muscle, right? And you feel that tension coming through. So, you know, when you get stressed or angry and like
tense and
this,
stuff, and
all of this, the
clenching,
jaw clenches. So there is like a physiological response to a psychological trigger, right? So this tension can happen not just in the muscles, it can happen all through the body, like in the viscera, around organs, all of this sort of stuff. So when you have subluxation, right, potentially from thoughts, traumas or toxins, this is what can happen. It can have a dysfunctional effect on the body. It can create or lead to dysfunction, right? And as we know, the body always it's trying to heal, right? It's trying to constantly do what it's designed to do. You're born healthy, right? And it's trying to keep you healthy. But sometimes when these thoughts, traumas and toxins, it's like a short circuit to the system, and you start actually replenishing cells, unhealthy cells, and that's where that dysfunction can lead to worse things. I don't want to say the D word like disease, but you know, that can kind of lead to that pattern. All right. So chiropractic really is, as I said, the beauty of it is the philosophy that really kind of draws me in on it every day. And it's the understanding that we believe that healing capacity that's in you, that's in me, that's in all living things, it's all around us, right? It's coursing through you and me right now. Now that's called, in chiropractic terms, innate intelligence. So in traditional Chinese medicine, they call it like qi. Ancient Ayurvedic medicine, it'd be like prana. It's the life force, right? So we know scientifically that the brain and the spinal cord hold all of this bioelectrical energy. That's where it all is. So that's where your life force lives. That's where it resides. That's the conduit, because it comes from above down, inside out. So my job is to find any interferences or blockages into your life force. And that's simply by assessing the spine, manually adjusting it, and letting your body do what it's designed to do, and that is to be healthy and to continue to heal. It's not me that's the magician that's waving the magic wand, dude. It's you. It's all in you, and it's in everyone that I see. And so what my job and what our job as chiropractors is to allow that process to happen, okay? And it becomes actually, really, as you know, it's kind of like a 50-50 relationship. I'll do my job, but then you've got to do your job in terms of the thoughts, traumas and the toxins. And if you do, it becomes a success strategy for you, for healthy people, right? So chiropractic is this holistic approach to healing and to health. And that, my friend, is what it's all about.
Awesome, man.